I've been getting a lot of comments recently about loose threats I've made to take a chisel or a buzzsaw or some kind of horrific piece of machinery to my shimmel in order to mod it or pimp it for this new KeySense piano bar thingy that doesn't quite fit my upright. And I have seriously been considering it, but I thought it might be a better idea to come here to Berlin, the home of the mad scientists, the crazy professor, the artist come technologist who created this wonderful piece of tech. How are you doing? Good to meet you, Ben.
How are you?
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up doing this amazing project with Olafur.
So for me, the probably last 10 years have always been like a constant struggle to define what I'm actually doing, because I'm a little bit afraid to define it, because then most interesting things, I'm afraid, wouldn't come up. So as I'm kind of always shifting between art and invention. So I build a lot of artworks, but I'm also doing more technical development projects. Mainly, I'm really interested in electronics, digital control system, industrial automation, but also lots of mechanics and actually doing the work myself.
Now, you met Olafur because there's a bit of a kind of an extended family here in this building.
Yes, essentially my old studio, which I founded, in which we are standing at the moment, Feld. They are doing a lot of design work for different kinds of labels, for example, Erase Tapes, Niels Fram, and also recently a lot of things for Olafur. So it's all kinds of things like record covers, posters, piano scorebooks, and these kinds of things. So like different kind of people pop in and out of different projects from time to time. So.
And Olafur, his manager, is a few walls away, isn't he?
Yeah, essentially on the other side of the wall. So sometimes Sven comes through the elevator and just appears here. I work a lot with other people, for example, Matthias, who is over there, and does a lot of like old studio gear and rebuilding and building and developing these kinds of things. And he had done a lot of studio work with Olafur. And Olafur, for his live setup, he was having this Moog bar, which essentially is a little bit problematic, and it's out of production. So it's very hard to get. People are paying like $6,000 on eBay for this thing. So if it breaks down, you're essentially out of luck. It was a very un-Moog-like product.
Slightly unstable from what I hear.
Also that.
And problematic with like stage lighting, that kind of stuff?
Yes, it had a lot of quirks, and also it was super sensitive when you put it onto the piano, especially with the black keys. If you just moved it a little bit, suddenly all the black keys would start triggering. Then Matthias essentially persuaded Olafur a little bit to look into the possibility of building something like completely from scratch. Middle of last year, we started all this. And I said, okay, I make a very short proof of concept prototype PCB, if like this, my approach could work. And it worked, and then I started producing two prototypes, two working prototypes for Olafur. He still uses on the tour. And then we said, okay, it's too nice to just leave it at that. Let's make a couple more.
We recently released a prepared piano library with Volker, you know Hauschka? I don't know if you've heard the artist. Yes. And it's great because I'm using my piano, but using his preparation as the sustain. So he gets to screw up his piano, and I get to have a screwed up piano without screwing up my own piano. Yeah. But it's really effective and really responsive.
Yeah, but that's really the kinds of things I hope that will come out of this. In response to your first video where you showed glimpses of it, like 1 or 2 people have contacted me, and one was a composer, I think, from LA. Right. And he said like, okay, I would really like to have something like this for transcribing my music, because I cannot actually read notes. So this was our very first prototype PCB. You kind of see here these little cute robot eyes. It's a kind of standard part you would use in fax machines or printers for detecting the presence of paper. For example, so it's an infrared emitter and an infrared photodiode. And they go into a high gain amplifier. So essentially it's shining light and just measuring how much is coming back. And it sounds rather simple. Like the really difficult part you have is most piano keyboards have black keys and they have white keys.
Okay.
And so probably the black keys reflectivity is probably around 2% of the white keys.
Really?
Yes. Because the eye is logarithmic, you don't perceive it as that stark of a contrast, but it actually is.
Particularly with modern keyboards where they don't use ebony, so it's not as reflective.
No, it's not as reflective. You essentially get almost nothing back. So what you can do, of course, is you can do some like programmable gain amplifiers where you vary the gain depending on the situation. You have 88 keys, so you have to do that 88 times. So that gets rather complex. So our approach was more like, okay, let's build this thing for the black keys. So it works really well on the black keys. And then we essentially do 2 scans per key. So one is essentially turning this infrared LED full power, and the other scan is probably using just 2% of the output power. So we don't vary the gain, so the gain always stays the same, but we actually vary like the intensity. And upon calibration, the module essentially decides, am I using the value of this high power scan or the low power scan for each respective key. This unit is essentially the one which also the handful of paying customers have received. So that is essentially the little tool used for testing. So there's a little bit of different software on there that just sends out the raw values. And when you pass your finger here, you can see like the raw sensor. And I think you also see when I turn off the desk lamp, because it's not filtered yet, so you get some artifacts of the 50 hertz.
I see.
What we also did, like it was set up here on a. I actually went to eBay classified ads and bought like an old Roland Master keyboard. It's the most gross thing I ever bought, but putting a piano here just for testing was a little bit overkill. So we put it actually flat on the side, so the whole bar was looking at the window. And when you did the calibration then, like the background level of the radiation coming from the window was actually the baseline, so you could kind of play with your shadow on the bar.
Oh, incredible.
That's kind of the sensor part. So each module like this is an octave. So it's 12 keys. So then there would be 7 of those basically connected in row, and then you have this little auxiliary board. Because sadly the piano has 88 keys, so
yes.
it's not divisible by 12. Yeah.
I only ever use 86.
Yes. And essentially then this all feeds into this little controller box, which also supplies power to all the modules. And in here it's rather simple. It has those bus connectors and actually a lot of MIDI ports. It just takes like the raw values coming from those modules and spits out MIDI. It does a little bit of a couple of other things like MIDI merging and USB MIDI, so you kind of have this little bit of a universal hub, so you can put MIDI in there and it pops out on the other side, or just essentially use it as a standalone USB MIDI interface.
So basically, and I don't know if this is common to, it's a Schimmel upright, and basically it doesn't fit because the panel on the side starts here.
Yeah.
So I need to cut from about here. Is there anything in there that would upset? No circuitry.
No,
So
it's just a dumb piece of metal.
dumb piece of metal. So I would just go to a metalworkers maybe or something.
We can go to the basement. We have kind of our workshop
brilliant.
in the dungeon down.
So you'll be able to do it here?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing.
Yeah, that should do.
Perfect. Oh, looks great. And that's way within tolerance of the piano, so it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ben.
You're welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for your time today.
It was a pleasure to meet you
And
too.
is there a website people can look at?
Yeah, that would be allesblinkt.com, but I'm sure you will put it probably in the video description.
I will. And I don't even need to say, in the description down below. Thanks so much, Ben, for your time, and I hope I can find a way of working with you again in the future. You strike me as a very interesting human being. The first inventor I've met, and it's poignant for me because my great-great-great-grandfather, there might be another great in there, was an inventor, and his name was Ebenezer Howard, and he's responsible ostensibly for Suburbia, but he invented first this typewriter that had the serif points and all this kind of stuff, and I think I find it fascinating, this kind of the merging of creative thought and creative people and the kind of industrial application of. Anyway, I'm waffling. Thanks for watching, Ben. Thank you, and I look forward to, once I get this kind of polyphonic MIDI sorted on the modular, getting the whole idea behind what I'm going to use the key sense for. Into operation. Whilst I was in Berlin, I did actually have breakfast with Olafur, and he said that he was very excited to see what different people did with this. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do see what I come up with, converting my piano into a MIDI controller, and ding that bell if you want to be notified the next time I make a film and put it up. One of those, I think, for Ben would be much appreciated. See you next time.